Let's go straight now to a discussion on the ongoing war in Iran with Dr. Peter Layton, visiting fellow at the Griffith Asia Institute at the Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia. Dr. Layton, thank you so much for joining us on the show. So I want to start with some of the latest comments from President Trump. He says he's willing to talk, but will also take revenge, for the first U.S. casualties that have been reported. We also know that strikes and counter-strikes continue. I'm wondering how you see the regime responding. Will it hunker down and try and absorb more hits, or do you see them coming to the table very soon?
I don't see them coming to the table very soon, I must admit. As you said, the leadership group has changed, and there's now three leaders effectively. Two are hardline, one is a moderate. The Israelis and the Americans have so far killed 48 members of the top leadership group, and there hasn't been a marked change so far. Clearly, the Americans were sincerely hoping that such an assassination of the Ayatollah would suddenly bring regime change, but that doesn't seem to have occurred. Like all regimes like this, while many people are opposed to it, many people also benefit from it and support it. So at the moment, it sort of seems that the status quo will be maintained, and they will simply hunker down. That's on the negative side. On the positive side, the Americans and the Israelis are definitely, if you like, attacking and destroying many of the ballistic missiles and the drone systems that the Iranians are using against Gulf nations and Israel. So as more and more of those systems are destroyed or are used, then the Iranians won't be able to attack people outside of Iran.
Okay. Dr. Layton, I'm wondering how much of this depends on who's in charge. You mentioned the president, Masoud Pezeshkian. He's seen as a bit of a moderate, but other reports say the real decision maker is actually Ali Larijani, whom apparently the late Ayatollah entrusted to ensure Iran survives exactly what's happening now, which is military attacks and targeted killings. Does it matter?
It probably does. You have to have people who are invested in the survival. The Americans were clearly counting on the leadership group breaking up and there being some major fissures in there. If we just think back to perhaps a simple case of Venezuela, the Americans, if you like, kidnapped the president, and the vice president was waiting in the wings and suddenly took over. And the Americans were very happy with that. So I think that they were hopeful about a similar situation like that. Now, the Iranians have been telling people now for about a month that they have been preparing for this and that they have a series of successor leaders in mind. And so as the Americans and the Israelis kill them, there are more people waiting in the wings who will step up, who are loyal to the regime. So the Iranians, I think, will sort of go on, if you like, or the current regime will. What we really don't know is what the people will do. Certainly in the cities, there are many factions who would like the regime to fall. In the countryside, though, the situation's very different. And the Iranian security services remain very strong. The Israelis and Americans say that they've attacked 2,000 targets so far in the war. I'm assuming that at least a reasonable number of those targets are the Iranian security headquarters and various installations like that.
And Dr. Layton, as Iran approaches a post-Khamenei transition, what does this moment reveal about the durability of the country's revolutionary system? And spare a thought about the regime loyalists. How do they position themselves now in this transition period?
Yes, it's always a difficult moment for the loyalists here about whether they go with the new guard, if you like, or they hang on hoping that the old guard will survive. So there'll be a certain amount of uncertainty there. I think actually the whole thing so far has been to project an image of stability, because while the Ayatollah has been killed, clearly there was a leadership council waiting to take over. We've also had talk about the meeting of the 88 clerics or something, and so that the process of replacing the Ayatollah appears, if you like, orderly, stable, and planned. Now, sort of just to go back a little bit there, while I sort of had, if you like, the good news is that the Israelis and the Americans are gradually destroying the ballistic missiles and the drones. So that in about sort of 10 days, 12 days time, attacks from Iran may gradually cease, meaning that airports and stuff in the Gulf region may then reopen. The problem, I think, is that if the regime hangs on and they seek to retaliate and keep the war going, then shipping passing through the Straits of Hormuz may still be under threat. Those passing ships are very easy targets, and I think they'll be very hard for the Israelis and the Americans to stop the Iranians interfering with those ships. For instance, the Houthis have been very successful in the Red Sea just by firing the odd angry missile. So there's a fair chance that the regime will stay and just simply survive and carry on the war through, if you like, minor maritime strikes in the Persian Gulf.
Okay. So, Dr. Layton, can I take it then that you don't think that ordinary Iranians, are going to heed President Trump's call, work with the police, work with the Revolutionary Guard to overthrow the regime? I mean, these are the same forces, obviously, that killed anywhere between 4,000 and 30,000 people in December.
That is correct. Unfortunately, I think the time for that has passed. Now, having said that, bear in mind that President Trump's attack on the Ayatollah was certainly very well informed and very, very accurate. The Americans clearly have a good understanding of where the leaders are. Therefore, they may know a lot more when they say that there are fissures and cracks in the Iranian leadership group. But so far, we haven't seen any sign of it. There hasn't been any discernible movement, if you like. The Iranians are still firing a reasonable number of ballistic missiles and drones each day, and it's quite possible that the Israelis and the Americans will just keep on bombing, and the Iranians will just simply hunker down. And I suppose the classic example at the present time is the Israelis have been bombing Gaza for 2.5 years or so. And really, Hamas still remains in control. And that's an extreme case, sort of right out of left field sort of thing. But nonetheless, it shows that bombing by itself does not necessarily lead to regime change. The people have to be have to be up for it, and have to be up to revolt. And so far, there's no tangible evidence of that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Layton, for mentioning other conflicts in the region and, of course, talking tactics with us. Visiting fellow at the Griffith Asia Institute, Griffith University. Thank you.